Welcome in. My name is Erin Trafford. I am the host here at the Fourth Draft. Thank you for stopping in. It's hilarious because when I launched this show, I had the intention of going bi-weekly, and I think we have been dropping weekly shows for the past 9 weeks. So, quick warning, we're going to go back to bi-weekly soon, because I do want to give the team a little bit of time to sink into some new ideas if we're going to do more Eavesdrops. So today is going to be the last Eavesdrop of season 1. And it's kind of a neat one. I asked the team, kind of building on the last episode, what the biggest misconceptions or misunderstandings they feel exist out there about podcasting, specifically about branded podcasting. And we talk about the Wendy's thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the last episode where I shared some pretty cool things that are happening in the world of branded podcasting. And Wendy's, yes, the hamburger company, fast food chain, features heavily. All right, so let's check in with Team SSN today on branded podcast myths. Question I have for you is a little bit more about our industry, but I want to hear from you guys. I've been on, I don't know, a couple sales conversations, discovery calls a week for the last few weeks with what I will say are large, either they're large brands and or agencies. So they're not sort of ground level, they're big organizations, media buyers, that kind of thing, all in Canada, all interested in podcasting, which is phenomenal. But I'm finding that I am being faced with a lot of misunderstandings about podcasting vis-a-vis the rest of the media landscape and what's possible. So I'm curious to hear from each of you. What would you say is the biggest misunderstanding that you feel folks have about specifically branded podcasting and what we do at SSN and others like us do in the market? What do you think is the biggest misunderstanding?
That once it's out there, it's out there. You can never talk about the episode again. No, even if you did it in January, you could still talk about it in March or April or May. It's just you have to mention it properly, but it's not like, well, we've wasted it. It's gone now. It's like, no, like reruns live on TV, so why wouldn't they? You can still use that same strategy with how you promote your podcast.
And to that end, having it on a feed doesn't mean that people know that it's there. So you do have to, it's kind of from both ends. Yeah.
You think that's the biggest misunderstanding, is that just like put it, like set it and forget it?
I think a bit tied in with what Becky said. Yeah, I think that thinking that like the only way, if you just put podcasts on a feed, the only people that are seeing that podcast are the people that already subscribe to your feed. So if you have no subscriptions, you have 0 people seeing your podcast, period. Like there's nobody's going, not to say that nobody searches for podcasts randomly on Spotify, but I think that's extraordinarily rare that happens. So I think you have to promote yourself, and you have to, that's just the thing. That's a way to get your ear in somebody's head and to get your message into somebody's head, but you have to get the message out that the podcast exists in the first place and be compelling enough for people to continue to listen. I think they go hand in hand.
Well, you've said this often, Aaron, in some of these conversations. This is not social media, and I think that's what we look at it as living in a digital space for sure, but it gets swamped by this social media mindset. And to both what Becky and Drew are talking about here, that's kind of the culture that you gotta break in it. That this needs to be part of a bigger strategy in terms of how you are presenting your brand, you are communicating your brand, you're marketing your brand, all of those things. It's just not good enough to stick it on the bulletin board and walk away.
Yeah,
I think another
masterpiece, and you can put it in a room, and you can like put an open sign in the door, but it doesn't mean people are going to come in and see it, right? Like you can have the most incredible Picasso, whatever, but if you don't invite people in, they're never going to see it. So what's the point of creating a masterpiece and putting it in an empty room if you're not going to invite people to come see it?
I think another misconception can be that some people and even some brands think that a branded podcast, it's like just a big series of spots, or that it's all covered with the brand, and who's gonna want to listen to that?
Mhm.
When what really is valuable content for the audience, that it's already on the scope of that brand. And by the way, this is sponsored by this brand, but it's not really like it's all covered with the brand. People are engaging with that content because it speaks to the audience of that brand that has the same values of the brand. So I think that both, even I've encountered people that are surprised that some branded podcasts are created by brands, because I remember one that was made by a toys, like little kids toys brand, and it was talking to moms and the way that moms educate and engage with their kids, and it was made by that brand. So people were really surprised that that brand was behind the valuable content.
Yeah, I agree. That's the biggest misconception, and spoiler, I do a solo episode all about this, is that there's this general understanding, especially in Canadians, I think, because we're behind on almost everything, that a branded podcast is just buying ads on podcasts, that's the only option, that they don't see that, no, this is like putting your brand at the center of an owned story. And it came up to, as I have a Google alert set up, and today it was announced in Adweek that in the UK, Wendy's has invested in a branded podcast called The Burger Files, and it's a true crime comedy all about the Baconator that they're releasing for Halloween.
Love.
It's fully scripted, true crime
Love it.
about a hamburger. I'm like, they get it. They
Mhm.
get it. Where is that in Canada?
Yeah.
Where is that? Mike's like, I'm gonna listen to that right now. I could see.
I can't wait to check that out. I really hope Burger King one
I
day
do
puts
too.
out like a horror slasher series all centered around the Burger King being the murderer, but
Oh, yeah.
who's behind the Burger King mask? Like, oh, that's brilliant. My
Yes.
world is a little bit brighter knowing that exists now. So thanks for that.
This is the point. So what do you think, Mike, just based on that, like what is the biggest misunderstanding that you come across? Because you work with a lot of our creators
Mhm.
who are like ground level, but what would you say is the biggest misunderstanding about branded podcasts?
From I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I'm hearing what everyone else is saying, and I'm kind of feeling all those answers too. I mean, I think back to like, one or two examples in particular where the hosts kind of feel like they're reluctant to even promote their own podcast because they have this negative headspace or thinking about like any kind of advertising or marketing without really acknowledging that that's what their podcast exists for to begin with. I mean, to some extent, but also not because they're just advertising their business or their service, but because they're speaking in general about what they do and offering valuable insight and content to people who might not be able to become clients of theirs but can still benefit if it still spread the word. I don't know. I mean, it's something I would have to really give some thought, because otherwise, like, just the lack of understanding of what a branded podcast is and what the content can be and what it can actually do. Kind of what everyone else is saying here is what speaks to me. But if I really stewed on it, maybe something else would come out to me.
Jamie, do you have any thoughts on that as the non-podcaster?
I guess as a non-podcaster, i.e. a listener, from the listener's perspective, and back to what Andrea said, is like the branded podcasts that you don't know that it's actually from a brand are the ones that are like getting it really right. But as a listener, I'm not seeking branded podcasts, so it has to be fed to me like a burger.
And I'm going to link to the Wendy's show as soon as I find the RSS feed. I have yet to click through and find it.
One of the things, though, that I think people stumble over, and we see this all the time when we sit down and we do visioning and storyboarding sessions, I think, is that they don't fully appreciate, and that's because of the world that they come from. They aren't naturally storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
This room is just filled with brains that tell stories in various ways. And we can see, we can hear, we can smell. We have all the senses firing on all pistons. There's a story here, and we're able to draw that out. And I think that in some cases, we've run into people who say, well, what will I talk about? What is it that I have to say that isn't an ad, right? That isn't like, I'm not out there selling widgets. So how is it that I could align what I do with the stories we have to tell, and to Jamie's point, make that attention worthy, right? What is it that I don't care that, you're this particular brand. I care about the story. Then I realize there's an association with the values that your brand expresses. So sometimes I think they put themselves out in front of this too much, a little bit, like they get in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a criticism. That's just natural instinct, because we see this as a marketing tool. So we got to be out there. I mean, we talked to somebody last week, but doing a series, Aaron, and the line was, I want it to be big. I want everybody to see it. I want all the people in the world to listen to it. Right now,
Yeah.
She fully appreciated that was not the point of it, but that's our natural tendency when we want to get the word out, that this is going to be bigger than big. It has to have a place in your overall strategy. And part of that is, how good are you at telling a story? And typically, the brands sometimes just aren't that good at it. Neither are the marketers.
You made me remember my advertisement class back in university, where they tell me the story of how advertisement started. And they said that at the beginning, you would want to sell a product by telling people what it does. But little by little, we've been transforming that type of communication to, this is our value, and this is our mission as a company. And if we align in a certain way, let's all work for this mission, this vision. And I think that speaks on where we are now with podcasts, because brands want sell products right now based on, this is what we do, and this is all of the characteristics of the product. We are speaking to our audiences, our clients, in different ways. Like, this is what we believe, and this is what we want to do and create in this world. And I think stories and podcasts gave us and them the opportunity to communicate that and connect with people that are potential clients.
Yeah, like, how does it make you feel, as opposed to, how badly do you want this? Or, I think that's the bottom.
They always say that people purchase largely based on emotion more than anything. So it's right there. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you want your potential customers, clients, whatever to feel?
It's
not
transformational
what you want them to
versus
think.
Yeah, it's transformational versus transactional. There's two different lanes completely. And I think that at times the brands that we talk to, or people who are even considering this, put the podcast in the wrong lane, right? It's not that you have to have a transactional marketing plan. There's no question about it. You got to make the sale. You got to close the sale, clearly. But the transformational part of it is bringing somebody into the house that hadn't even considered coming into the house, right?
I think every advertisement class asks the question, what does Starbucks sell? Coffee or an experience? Same way for Apple. Do they really sell computers and cell phones? What do they really sell?
So there you have it. There's still a lot of education out there about new media, where it's going, old media, where it's been. And I'm sitting here thinking about what I want to do for the last few episodes of this season, because I'm going to take a break over the Christmas holidays, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the background at SSN that I can't wait to share with you. Right now, we're building a new video offer. So we're going to start adding videos into all of our podcasts. We are creating new live stream offers. So there's just a lot of stuff going on in the background of the business. So I'm going to take some time, straighten out that spaghetti, and come back in the new year with a little bit of new energy and new content. And we're going to start adding guests into the mix. Anyway, in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with me, find me on LinkedIn, Erin Trafford. You can always email us, hello@storystudionetwork.com. And don't forget to rate and review the Fourth Draft. Send me a note. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you need more of, what you need less of, and I will accommodate. I think what I do want to talk about before the season is up is this idea of a download. I want to unpack it a little more. What is a download and how does it actually equate to a listener? Let's talk nerdy to me a little bit. Sound good? All right. Thanks so much for listening. This was a Team Eavesdrop. Of course, thank you to Team SSN. Everyone is so amazing. Sometimes I pinch myself. We'll chat with you next week, and then we're back on our bi-weekly Wednesday drop schedule. Until then.